The University of Louisville football program received a commitment from the number one running back in the country. We'll talk about what Rueben Owens brings to the table here on this episode of the show. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. As always, I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I serve as a credential media member for Cardinals Sports Zone. I also do some PA announcing work for the university in various sports. I want to take this time to personally thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. As I mentioned, the number one running back in the country in the 2023 cycle, Rueben Owens, committed to the Cardinals on Monday evening. We will discuss the significance of that commitment. We will also talk about three-star offensive tackle and current St. John Bosco teammate Pierce Clarkson, Raymond Pulido, cutting his list to 5 with the Cardinals making the list. And then finally, we will dive in to the weekly Mailbag segment. We'll start out by talking about the big news. On Monday evening, 5-star 2023 running back Rueben Owens, the number one running back in the country, committed to the Louisville football program. And from what I've been reading today, it seems like it caught everyone off guard. Even the coaching staff wasn't necessarily expecting a commitment this soon. But obviously, you're not going to argue. It's huge news. Rueben Owens becomes the second highest commitment in program history behind Michael Bush. He is, however, the only program's only number one, program's only commit that happens to be the number one at the running back position. Michael Bush, for some reason, I guess, wasn't maybe not necessarily listed as a running back. I know that Michael Bush played quarterback in high school for my alma mater, the Male Bulldogs. So I guess you could probably make the case that Michael Bush was probably listed as an athlete or maybe even a quarterback. I'm not sure. That was a little bit ago, a little bit before my time as well, with me only being born in 1998. But regardless, Rueben Owens, this is a huge commitment. For a couple of different reasons. Number one, you're continuing to, get, more and more, traction on the recruiting trail. The pendulum is continuing to swing. The momentum is in full effect. If you had any doubts that this last weekend for the Louisville football program on the recruiting trail in terms of that big official visit weekend maybe didn't necessarily go as successfully as previously thought, well, those doubts are alleviated now. You get the highest rated recruit that was on campus to commit, and by reading the tea leaves, it seems like there's more on the way. In the next week to couple weeks. Hopefully we get some more good news soon. But overall, this is a huge addition to the Louisville football program. First, speaking about for this recruiting class, the recruiting class now, the Cardinals are ranked 11th. I know that they were 7th when Jamari Johnson committed to the program. I'm sorry, DeAndre Moore committed to the program as well. But with the decommitment of 4-star defensive back Martel Height that we spoke about on the Monday episode of the show, and other programs getting more commitments, this isn't necessarily a reflection, in a negative light of the University of Louisville. I think it's just other programs getting some more commitments. Some of the top programs starting to, take shape in the top 10 the way they usually do. But obviously, there's a real traction that this class ends up, top 15, possibly top 10. They're going to have to continue to reel in some big name recruits to get to that level. And it seems like they put themselves in good positions to do so. But overall, this is a huge addition across a handful of reasons. Number one, not only is he huge for the recruiting class and trying to continue to get top players in this class, because, like the old saying goes, top talent wants to play with top talent. And what better way to join an offensive recruiting class than by joining a high 4-star quarterback 2 4-star wide receivers, the number 1 running back in the country, and possibly some very highly rated offensive linemen. Rueben Owens, as I mentioned, the second highest commitment in the program's history, 16th ranked overall, according to the 2023 24/7 Sports Composite. He's the number 1 running back, according to the service, and the 3rd best prospect in the state of Texas. 5'11" from 190 pounds from El Campo, Texas. Had nearly 3,000 rushing yards this past season. A dual sport athlete where he also excels in track. I know that we read this excerpt about a month ago when we talked about Rueben Owens possibly visiting the program. But I want to read it again because I think that it paints a very good picture of the type of player that Louisville would be getting. Gabe Brooks, the Midlands region recruiting analyst for 24/7 Sports, evaluated Rueben Owens back on March 11th of this year. And he had this to say. He compared him to former Alabama running back and Jacksonville Jaguars TJ Yeldon. He basically went on to say, owns the requisite frame with an athletic build and room to add necessary mass, looks and plays taller/longer than listing with open field gait on the longer end of the spectrum that fosters speed building ability at the top end. Production jumped from freshman to sophomore year was with obvious big play punch over 10 yards per carry. Then again in his junior season with enormous production. Field speed is a plus and reflects in sophomore track times. Flashes impressive short area suddenness with agility to make defenders miss in the hole. Does not require much gear down when redirecting. He goes on to say, couples those traits with impressive burst and acceleration to reach top speed quickly. Shows good contact balance at the second level. Capable pass catcher with 7-on-7 reps as a receiver. Who, side note, he did play 7-on-7 with Pierce Clarkson. So being able to spend time with Clarkson before his official visit probably paid some solid dividends as well. Third down competency in blitz pickup and increased passing game reps can be developed. Vertical runner at times with a high center of gravity, looking like one of the best 2023 running backs nationally early on. I'm looking for some more. I'm trying to find some more evaluations, but all I can find right now are those from Gabe Brooks. But I mean, Gabe Brooks has evaluated Rueben Owens on 3 separate occasions, and when you go back and look at all 3 of those evaluations, it just seems like from each year it's just consistently adding on, and I think that that's a testament to how complete of a player and how complete of a running back that Rueben Owens is becoming. Because when you watch his film, obviously he's like a cheat code. I don't know if you can hear the dogs barking, but I do apologize. They are going absolutely rampant upstairs. But overall, when you watch his film, he is literally a cheat code. Kind of gives you like Reggie Bush vibes, to where there's that famous clip of Reggie Bush at USC, to where it seems like he's going to get tackled like 10 yards in the backfield, and he tries to make up for it by going to one side, and he loses about 10 yards, and then he cuts back and he goes all the way around for a touchdown. There's a lot of those plays. It seemed like I watched like 10 minutes of film on Rueben Owens, and the guy got tackled like once or twice. I mean, it's incredible when you watch his film, and not only does he have that ability as a running back, but also as a pass catcher as well. And that's another thing that you can't overlook, and then that's the fact that Scott Satterfield and company have really made it a point to try to get running backs more involved in terms of coming out of the backfield and catching passes. And what better way to do that than bringing in one of the nation's most dynamic running backs in the country? In terms of what this means for the University of Louisville, rotation-wise, I mean, I think that it spells itself out here. I think that Rueben Owens will be competing for snaps in, pretty much right away here in the Cardinals program. Tyon Evans, there's a chance that he could be going to the league after this year. So he would possibly be the replacement for Evans. You would possibly have, Jalen Mitchell, Travion Cooley, and Rueben Owens, assuming that Mitchell doesn't go to the league and Cooley doesn't transfer. Obviously, you just never know, and I'm not insinuating that either will happen. But, you just never know. But the good thing about it is that, the Louisville football program does a good job of, utilizing running backs almost better than anyone. They get guys a lot of touches in the backfield. Two guys, they basically kind of did a system to where three guys rotated for carries this past year. So, and then you had a mobile quarterback in Malik Cunningham that also got a lot of carries. So you have to factor that in when you talk about Pierce Clarkson being more of a pro style quarterback. You won't necessarily have a guy taking away some of the carries like Malik Cunningham does, which not a bad thing. Just this, the different styles of play. From offensively speaking, I think that I don't want to jump the gun here, but with the skill set that Owens has, with being a top 20 player, you would have to assume that he could definitely go down as one of the Cardinal greats at the position and get to the next level and really have a successful career in the NFL. Hopefully, he lives up to the hype, but I will say that it's still we're still a little bit of ways from signing day. So, as much as we get excited about these recruits, you do need to understand that it is not over in their recruitment. I know that Rueben Owens did tweet out last night that he is not taking any more visits unless it's to Louisville, and that's good news because that's how opposing programs are kind of able to, get your recruits. But at the end of the day, with these high caliber guys, that top programs are going to stay on them throughout, leading up to early signing day and national signing day. And it's just a matter of, Louisville continuing to recruit these guys hard. Obviously, they're doing something right. And obviously, I think in the fall, winning a lot of games, having a successful season could alleviate some of those doubts as well. But I'm very, very excited. It's a cautious optimism just because, you do have to get the recruit signature on the dotted lines on the national letters of intent. But at the end of the day, this is a monumental commitment for Scott Satterfield. This is a monumental commitment for the University of Louisville football program. And I'm very, very excited to see how the rest of the Flyville 23 class, fills out. A possible addition to the class, maybe at a later date, is three-star offensive tackle Raymond Polito, who has recently cut his list to 5. The Cardinals are included, but what do the chances look like for the team? We will discuss that here in a second after we talk about our friends and the title sponsor of the show, BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And it remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts. Cardinal fans, I want to take this time, as always, to personally thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. With Thursday quickly approaching, one live NBA draft show is not enough for Locked On. The entire NBA channel is going live on NBA draft night. So if you have a favorite team, make sure you subscribe now to their Locked On YouTube channel. I know me personally, the Locked On Rockets channel hosted by Jackson Gatlin is fantastic. So you can get notified when they go live on NBA draft night. That is all of the channels on the Locked On Podcast Network. Moving on in the 2023 football recruiting talk, three-star offensive tackle Raymond Polito. I don't know that I'm pronouncing that right, so if I am butchering that last name, I do apologize. It's not intentional. It just looks like it would be said Pulido. It might be Polito. It might not be either of the two. So if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments, and I'll definitely try to reach out to someone who would know how to pronounce it. I probably should have done that already. But regardless, the three-star offensive tackle that is the teammate of St. John Bosco's Pierce Clarkson, Jaleel McClain, so on and so forth. Now I think DeAndre Moore going to St. John Bosco? I don't know. I thought I saw somewhere where somebody was transferring to St. John Bosco, like a big-time recruit. It might not have been DeAndre Moore. If it wasn't, I do apologize. But Pulido has cut his list to 5. The Cardinals have made that list. UCLA, Alabama, Arizona, Oregon, and the Cardinals. Obviously, a very star-studded top 5 for the three-star offensive tackle. 6'6", 345 pounds from Bellflower, California. When the Cardinals started to recruit him, I think he made a visit to the program in March with Pierce Clarkson. He was kind of underrated. Didn't have a lot of hype on the recruiting trail. I think he was outside the top 800. Well, it seems like recruiting services and other programs are starting to catch on because now he is currently ranked as the 470th best prospect in the class, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, the 38th best offensive tackle, and the 34th best prospect in the state of California. And then if that doesn't give you any type of indication, UCLA, Alabama, Arizona, and Oregon, along with the Cardinals, are in the hunt for his services. So that pretty much tells you everything you need to know there. But Polito visited the Cardinals this past weekend. Seemed like he had a fun time. I know that he caught up with Greg Biggins. I was about to say Gabe Brooks. Greg Biggins of 24/7 Sports. I'm reading this from his article, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, late on Sunday afternoon. He goes on to have some quotes from Polito. I had a really good visit. The energy and the overall atmosphere there is what stood out for me mostly. I love the coaches and the passion they bring to the program. I have a really good relationship with offensive line coach Nick Cardwell. He's a passionate coach and is someone that you can tell is eager to teach. I love the family vibe there as well. It's a great mix of family and taking care of business at the same time, and I like that a lot. He was impressed with the strength and conditioning aspect of it. I love the energy in the weight room. I love the weight room in general and want to be around coaches that bring that energy. And I felt that the players were great to be around as well. Michael Gonzalez was my player host, and he was great. We bonded really well, and I couldn't have asked for a better host. The player relationships on the team are all really tight, and I would love to be a part of something like that. He confirms that Louisville is a real option. He says, I'm giving Louisville a serious look. I love what they're doing there, and I love the recruiting class they're bringing in. I bonded really well with the other guys on the visit this weekend, especially the offensive line group. I think Louisville is an up-and-coming program and has a chance to be ACC champs. He's a guy that's already had an official visit to UCLA, but he does kind of set a timeline. I'm looking to commit in late July. I want to talk with my family more, but that's the time frame I'm looking at right now. The last thing he says is, I visited all of those schools and have a good feel for them. I figure if I know what I want to do, why not do it sooner rather than later? It's an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to the future. So we will see what happens. So it seems like Polito has a time frame, late July, probably about a month away. It's going to be big to see if Louisville can, try to make up ground a little bit. I currently feel like this is no reflection of inside information or anything like that. Personally, my intuition is telling me that it's going to be very hard to take him from the West Coast. Oregon is going to be tough, but I think UCLA may be the team to beat here, basically right in his backyard. Arizona is another Pac-12 team that you're going to have to contend with, and obviously, if Nick Saban wants a player, it's going to be very hard to compete with the Alabama Crimson Tide. But this just shows you how great that, Scott Satterfield, Steve Clarkson, Pierce Clarkson, the University of Louisville on the NIL trail, how much they have been taking steps forward, big strides forward. I think that Louisville's squarely in the mix with this one. I think it's really just going to come down to, what Polito is, emphasizing the most. And I think that Louisville has put themselves in a very good position. So, at the end of the day, we will see as more time goes on. But overall, I think that the offensive line recruiting through the past weekend was very solid. So we will transition over into the mailbag segment. But as the past couple episodes have shown, if you are watching this on YouTube, obviously you will not hear the implemented advertisements that are added electronically. But if you're listening to this on various streaming services, we will get back with you here in just a moment. The final segment of the show is dedicated to the weekly mailbag. There are some solid questions that I'd like to answer for the remainder of the show. The first one is in relation to the past recruiting weekend. Who are some players that you could see recruiting committing from this recruiting visit over the next week to 2 weeks? It's a good question. I came into the weekend feeling really good about where the Cardinals stood with Jordan Church and Luke Burgess, the two offensive linemen that Louisville has been recruiting heavily. I think those two. I thought that if the visit went well, that you could be on commitment watch for Madden Sanker, but I'm not necessarily sure in that regard. And then maybe Jeremiah Tellander, the linebacker from the state of Georgia. But I was kind of circling Jordan Church and Luke Burgess as the possible commitments here. Obviously, I'm not necessarily sure, but it seems like the Cardinals had a great visit with Nathaniel Joseph, the 4-star wide receiver. They had a good visit with Madden Sanker. They had good visits with Burgess and Jordan Church and Kobe Keenum and all of these prospects. So who knows? But obviously, getting Rueben Owens as the first one in the bunch is huge. So moving on to the basketball landscape. What are your overall thoughts on Kenny Payne recruiting Fabio Basili that played with Mike James in high school? Is this a desperation move for Kenny Payne? Obviously, optically speaking, you're going to look at it and think, okay, with Tyrese Hunter, Malachi Smith, Isaiah Mosley, all of these guards going elsewhere, Kenny Payne really doesn't have a lot of places to turn, so he goes to an underrated guard to fill out the roster. From everyone that I've talked to, has kind of all said the same thing, and is that they don't know why Basili is ranked so low. So to answer the question, I don't think that this is a desperation move by Kenny Payne. I think that this is really him just trusting his scouting. A 6'6" guard that shoots the ball pretty decently, has good vision, and overall can affect the game in a handful of different ways. Now, whether or not he is going to be an immediate contributor next year if he were to join the program, I think that's a question yet to be answered, but it's definitely a play for the future. And you could see, year 2, year 3, Basili really being a successful college player, but it's going to come down to, the overall development of the prospect and kind of moving on in that respect. So, that's kind of where I'm sitting. I don't think it's a desperation move. I think for a lot of people it takes some convincing because you're seeing a guy that is not ranked on recruiting services. He doesn't have a lot of D1 interest. So it's like, okay, you basically have to trust Kenny Payne here because he's the only one that's really in on him. The former teammate of Mike James. Mike James is obviously excited about the possibility. He's also AAU teammates with Kevin Knox's 5-star little brother in the 2024 class. So that could possibly be a big possibility as well. So yeah. So moving on, how much would Amani Bates being added to this team change your thoughts and their ceiling? I mean, I think Amani Bates has the most potential of pretty much anyone in the transfer portal. Obviously, things didn't necessarily go as planned in his freshman season at Memphis, but he came in as a reclassification, very, very young, was so young to the point where he had to stay for a second year because he wasn't eligible to enter the NBA draft. Played solid through a couple games at the beginning of the season, then kind of had a back injury, and back injuries can be tricky to where he wasn't really able to develop. People want to talk about the attitude issues and stuff like that. I don't put much stock into that because, I mean, the kid's 18 years old. I mean, I wasn't, I'm still not all that mature at 24 years old. But I'm not saying that Amani Bates is not mature. What I'm saying is that we have to stop being in this line of thinking that 18, 19, 20-year-olds have it all together in their life. I mean, they're still, basically kids in the grand scheme of things. So I think that gets a little bit overblown. But I do think that Amani Bates has the potential to really change the ceiling of this Louisville team, especially if he's able to show that he's developed. Not only does he give you, a ton of talent, but he also gives you another ball handler. Right now, it seems like Louisville has one true ball handler, and that's L. Ellis. That's why I'm, kind of open to the addition of Fabio Basili, just to have guys that, get into the game and can handle the ball. L. Ellis was a guy last year that, recorded a ton of fouls, was one of the guys that fouled the most from this Louisville team. So I think that you have to look at it in that respect. I do think that Amani Bates would be a huge addition to this team. I think that the goal is to make the tournament. The addition of Amani Bates does not change that, but I also don't think it raises the ceiling, or I don't think it raises the expectations to like the second weekend or anything. I think that this season is one of those to where it's like, okay, make the tournament and anything else is icing on the cake. That's what it should be like. So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's honestly, in my opinion, where the rest of the fan base should be at. So before we get out here, I want to say thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen every day. The first picks of the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft have been made. Search now for Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and get over 50 insiders, the Odyssey sports experts, the draft experts of Locked On NBA Big Board, and more. The 5-episode Ultimate NBA Mock Draft is underway. Make Ultimate NBA Mock Draft your second listen today. Obviously, we touched base on some recruiting news. Rueben Owens committing to the program. Raymond Polito cutting his list to 5. The weekly mailbag tomorrow. We'll kind of play it by ear. We'll see what it's going to look like recruiting-wise, if the Cardinals get any more commitments, because I truly don't know. If they do, we'll talk about them. If not, we may start our 2022 football season preview, where we go position by position and analyze this situation. But that's going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Everyone have a great day. Stay cool. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.